All right, I think there is a connection. Well, I don't know if I would say a connection between Mormons and don't worry about the video on this. I'm just doing this for the audio, but Christians have to be careful of when they criticize the Mormon Church, when they criticize bad people in the church as a reflection on the church as a whole. Because you got to realize God works with weak people, even with sinners sometimes. But remember Judas. Now, there are Judases in the Mormon church. I mean, there's bishops, there's stake presidents that are evil. They're not always evil, but they do something evil or whatever. And there's bad members of the church, quote Mormons. But the funny thing is, it's like, well, if they're doing something bad, if they're doing something evil, if they're sinning, they're going against what the church teaches. So Christianity has this weird, like, I'm talking about the Christians who speak out against the Mormon church, etc. They have this weird hurdle they have to go over where it's like, well, there's bad people in the Mormon church, so it can't be true. And it's like, well, what about Judas? I mean, Judas was I mean, I guess I don't know if you'd say he's the worst person to ever live, but he's one of the worst. I mean, he was weird because it's like he knew Jesus was God, right? Like, it doesn't get worse than that. So, like, there's Mormons who know. Well, there's some Mormons who don't really know the church is true, so they do bad, and they don't really know if they're doing bad. But there's Mormons who know they're doing bad and do bad, But so what? And bring it back to Judas. It's like, Judas was bad. He knew he was being bad, And it's like, so what? Like, what I'm saying is, like, when people looked to the Christians during that time, who would you have looked to? Would you say, oh, well, Judas is a member of that church. Look how he's a bad person. I guess it doesn't really make sense in that context because he only did one bad thing, and he sold out the leader. But it's like, I'm not saying that they're completely similar. I'm just saying in life, so like, let's say you're a Christian or you're a Christian who's interested in the Mormon church. It's like, you've got to get past this emotional hurdle about the Mormon church that a lot of Christians have. And that is, they don't like something that one of the church members did. But it's like, wait a minute. The Mormon church isn't true because of the people in it. As far as like, well, if the church was true, then every Mormon would be acting right. And it's like, why are you taught that? What have you been taught about the Mormon church? You've been taught that because the people aren't true, it's not true. But that's not what Jesus would teach you. Jesus would say, this is my church because there are some people in it that are good and are trying to be good. There are some men, the leaders, who are prophets and seers. And I do give revelation to my church, and the Book of Mormon is a record of righteous people, and my power is in that church, the power to do the sacrament and do temple work, to make covenants with God. You individually, that's all that matters for you as a Christian. But this is the problem. A lot of Christians who have heard stuff against the Mormons, they've been taught how to view the church. See what I'm saying? You've been taught, well, you should view the Mormon church this way. ... And it's like, you got to drop all that. You need to see the Mormon church the way Jesus does. What would Jesus tell you what would Jesus tell you about the Mormon church? How you should view it as far as connection to him? Because Jesus might tell you, yeah, well, your neighbor could be a bad Mormon, or the bishop in your ward might be bad, or whatever, this and that. And it's like, but Jesus might tell you, hey, there's some good people in this church. There's people who give their lives for my church. There's people in this church that pray every day. There's people that in this church, there's teenagers that get up every day to go to seminary. There's so many good people in this church. I think that's what Jesus would say. I think he would say, hey, there's a lot of good people in this church. And there's a lot of people that don't really commit to it, blah, 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 and it's like, it's kind of like you're taught how to view the truth, but you're taught by people who aren't in the truth. People who aren't dedicated to Jesus, who aren't looking at things spiritually. Jesus has no problem working with Mormons. He has no problem with working with weak people, normal people, whatever. As long as they want to do what's right, as long as they want to keep his commandments and repent, isn't that all that Jesus cares about? That you're pure, that you're moral, that you love people and have charity. And there's millions of people like that in the church. So, but that's the thing. Yeah, there's good people, but you got to realize your relationship with Jesus, if you want to overcome the world, if you want to be, if you don't want to be tempted by Satan, you got to find Jesus, If there's more of Jesus that you can find in the Mormon church, you got to do it. You got to do what you can to become closer to God, so you can be strengthened in these days. There's so much wickedness, there's so much temptation, and then besides that, on the opposite side of that is your own weaknesses, spiritually, and maybe even physically, where you need help. Do you want help? And maybe it's not help to overcome something, maybe it's just help to endure through the rest of your life. We need help. We need help from a spirit, from God, but he's also physical in the sense he can help you physically with things. It's what we're taught about God that screws us up. It really messes us up about what we're taught about certain things. I mean, how many Christians will read the Book of Mormon? A lot won't, because they're taught that it's bad. It's kind of, that's just the way it is. It's like, and to be fair, what are we taught just in the world and society in general about Jesus from the day we're born? Don't even think about him. They kicked Jesus out of the schools. They kicked him out of the colleges. It's like, you don't need him in your life. Just love the world. Just be engulfed by the world. It's like, that's all you need. And it's like, we tend to view spiritual things as worthless. We tend to prize food and sex and money and fun. Even work. I mean, we can prize work too much, or learning. And it's like, well, what about overcoming the world? What about not giving in to sin? What about loving other people, So there just needs to be a revolution among Christians where they just really need to break free from the chains of Christianity and learn about Mormonism on their own. You need to read the Book of Mormon. You, as an individual, need to show your individuality and your freedom by breaking free and saying, I'm going to read the Book of Mormon. I'm not afraid. A lot of Christians, they don't read the Book of Mormon. They won't join the Mormon church because they're afraid. They're afraid of being alone. And that's understandable. I understand that. Um, but you need to think about that. You need to think like, you know, am I afraid? Am I, you know, I think it's scary to go to Jesus and to just do what he wants and be with him. You know what I'm saying? It's like we want a Christianity where it's like everyone in the family is a Christian. Everyone in my community is a Christian. We want that kind of Christianity. But we got it reversed. It's like the type of Christianity you should want, number one, is you should want Jesus. Like, that's what you should want. I want Jesus. I want to talk to him. I want to read what he said. And that means the Bible and the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants. You want to read everything he said. See what I'm saying? It's like you can have your family, you can have your church, but if the Book of Mormon is from Jesus, then nothing else matters. Your family doesn't matter. Your whatever Christianity you're in, it doesn't matter if the Book of Mormon is from Jesus. Nothing else matters. Nothing that anybody says matters. Jesus is independent of all churches. He only has one church, and that's way too hard for some people to take. That's way too stressful, and it gives people way too much anxiety. But it's like, hey, if he wrote the Book of Mormon, then it doesn't matter what anybody says. If his words are in the Book of Mormon, if he really did come to America after his death, and that's recorded, then the Mormon church, they're the only church that has that record. Now, if other Christian churches accepted it, that'd be great. But they don't. Think about it. There's only one church in America that says, hey, when Jesus died, he went to America and he taught the people, he healed people, and it's written down. We have it and we like it. It's cool, Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird that we're the only Christian church? You would think like that Christian leaders would be like, well, Jesus can talk to whoever he wants. He can go wherever he wants to go.